Okay, so syllabus wise, right? You say direct method for determining the speed of sound is not required. But I see a lot of books they still talk about it. A lot of papers still test about it. So I'm gonna just talk about it. How to measure speed of sound. So the idea is like this: you have two people standing at a distance away from each other. So this distance this D, right, cannot be too small. Cannot be like 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters. It's too short, so you involve a lot of errors in the experiment because speed of sound is very fast. So if you put a distance which is very small, right, you can't measure the speed of sound at all. The time for you to start and stop hearing the thing will it's too short for you to measure. So you have to have a distance which is at least 1 kilometer minimum. I see some books they write 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. So this experiment is impossible to do in Singapore. This experiment, you have to find a flat surface, a very open piece of land,
and a gun.
and a gun. Nah, this one air pistol, you can use something else that produces smoke. You can do the same thing. So you have to have an open space with no buildings, and then that space must be very big. Then you have to place these two people at the ends of that flat land, and the two people, right? Preferably the distance between them is about 1 kilometer. So you take measuring tape, and then by the means of measuring tape, you position the two observers in the open field. See, open field. You can not have buildings in between because there will be reflection of sound. Okay, number two. So the observer will fire the air pistol. So once he fires this, then you see smoke or flash of light depending on how the gun look like. Okay, then the observer who is here will see that flash, so he will immediately start the stopwatch. Then after that, the sound from the air pistol will go to the observer. Then when the second observer, yeah, hear the sound, right? Then he will stop the stopwatch. So that time, right? The time interval that is recorded will be the time taken for the sound to travel to the observer. So if you have the time already, and then you also have the distance here, then what you get is you can just use the values that you obtain to find the speed of sound, like that. Okay, you may not be asked to talk about the procedure for this experiment, but they can set this up as a question. Then they give you all the information and give you all the data. Then they ask you to calculate the speed of sound. That is possible. You don't have to give the procedure, but they can give you the information, you calculate the sound, speed of sound. Okay, so if they give you information about this experiment, they can also tell you that maybe say there's some observation in the experiment. Then after that, then they find that certain values are off in the experiment, or they say there is an observation that there is some mistake going on, kind of thing. So they can ask you, say, how can you improve on the experiment?
Which the positions of the two observers.
So you exchange the position. Exchanging the position will cancel the wind effect because sometimes the wind can cause the particles to move faster. So if you switch around, then that problem will be eliminated. Then another thing is you can also can repeat the experiment many times, and then you find the average value. So it minimizes random errors that way. This is only required if they ask you for mistakes, errors, and how to improve on the experiment. Because certain questions, they will at the end of the 4-part question, then they ask you, how can this experiment be blah, 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 blah. Then this is the possible answer that you can give to them. Then this is probably more often seen in experiment like practicals or design for practical. You'll see this kind of question. So it's there in case you need it. Okay, so there you see the question come already. So you have two students carried out an experiment to determine the speed of sound in air. The students stood at a distance 900 meters apart from each other. Human reaction time error. Why human reaction time error? So you say state a reason for repeating the experiment many times, right? So you say human reaction time. Why do you consider human reaction time as a reason for repeating the experiment? What does the human reaction time do?
Need time to send the message the hand to stop the stopwatch.
But human reaction time, right, is 0.2, so it's one decimal place. So if that's a situation, right, then the question down here, every single value should be one decimal place.
To improve the accuracy of the result.
So you should lump everything together, then you'll just be to improve the accuracy of the experiment. So that would be better than you writing human reaction time, because human reaction time is one decimal place only. So if that's the case, right, the time taken measured in the experiment should be one decimal place also.
2 decimal place.
So discounting the fact that we don't know how the students measure the time. So we take it as it is that the time is measured in 2 decimal place. So you can, if you want a reason for repeating the experiment is basically just improving the accuracy. That's all. Because if you introduce the term human reaction time, right? That means you don't know. Okay, one is right. They didn't say how the student measure the time. Did he use the stopwatch, or he was standing down there and then it was a machine that is automatically registering the whole thing? If it's a machine, a computer, or whichever device, an automatic device tracking this whole thing, right, then there wouldn't be human reaction error. You know what I mean? Because number one thing is they didn't mention that the student is the one that's pressing the stopwatch. So two, you don't know if the human is in control of the time taking machine. So if you use human reaction time, and then if there is no one physically controlling the stopwatch, there wouldn't be the error that you mentioned. So the safer bet is to just write increasing accuracy, a more vague answer in that case. You know what I'm saying? Determine the speed of sound in air, two-step answer. May not be in calculation. Determine the speed of sound in air doesn't mean it's always the standard answer given as 330. Some can be 300. So you cannot take the standard value and then just throw it down there as answer. So you have to calculate. Why 2.71?
Or then find the average.
You have to find the average. So first, that means you have to have your first working, right, first line to be your average. So you have to say average time equals to divide by 4. So you have to find average. So your first line will be average time. So you have average. So you have average time first. Average time equals to 2.7 plus 2.70 plus 2.71 plus 2.72 divided by 4.
Open line time.
Then after that, then you say speed is equals to distance over time. Then you get this. Then after that, then you 3SF. Okay? Because down here 3SF, down here 3SF, 3SF. Yeah? That can be 3SF too. Because if it's 2SF, then it will be 2.7. Okay?